Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are continuing to look at the life of King Saul. And today we are going to take a look at the dangers of obsession. And this is really where Saul is at in the point of his life, specifically when it comes to David. He has gone from just from working with him to jealousy to anger to hatred to attempted murder, which he will sadly continue to do. But now he's turning this into an obsession, to the point where he is willing to put anybody to the side, including his very own son. And that is what we are going to look at today. So turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 20. We're going to be looking at just verses 24 through 34 today. This is really the big part that Saul has to play. When it comes to saying the context, though, verses 1 through 23 is really just this back and forth friendship between Jonathan, the firstborn or the heir apparent to King Saul, and David. There's this back and forth friendship, and it's really a great example of what friendship is supposed to be. Now, with that being said, Jonathan realizes that something might be up because David keeps saying that your dad is trying to kill me. and Jonathan is like, I don't know. And so they come up with this way to see if that's the case. Jonathan is going to go talk to his dad, and David is going to go and hang out in a field somewhere. And based on that conversation between Jonathan and King Saul, Jonathan will then tell David by the shooting of arrows whether if it's okay to come back or if he needs to continue to flee. And sadly, it is the latter, because the interaction that Jonathan has with his dad does not go well. And again, it's not just because of jealousy at this point, it's because of an obsession that Saul has with David. An obsession based off of jealousy and anger and hatred, but an obsession nonetheless. So that brings us to verse 24 of 1 Samuel chapter 20. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the king, Saul, sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat as at other times, on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side. But David's place was empty. So you have this kind of strategic placement with the chairs. You have Jonathan, the heir apparent. You have Abner, the commander of the army. And then you have David's place. It doesn't say exactly where David's place was, at least in verse 25. But it is basically saying that he has a seat at the table with the king, which would have been a huge honor. And so David should be highly thought of, and yet Saul keeps trying to kill him. And so that there's this big tension there. But this evening, though, his place is empty because of this plan that Jonathan and David have come up with. Verse 26. Yet Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, something has happened to him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. This is very, very common in Israelite law. You have either eaten something or done something that makes you unclean, and therefore you have to be clean. It's not just that he didn't wash his hands or something. It is going back to the law. That is what you're supposed to connect this to. Verse 27. But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty. So, even if he was unclean, which he wasn't, But even if he was, it typically should be fine the next day, that you would be able to be deemed as clean. So it really, that's why the second day makes Saul go, okay, something's off. Let's pick up back in verse 27. And Saul said to Jonathan his son, why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today? I think it's interesting that he asks Jonathan. He doesn't ask Abner. He doesn't ask a servant. He asks Jonathan specifically. And there's some theories why this is. One, he's trying to really teach or be an example to Jonathan, because again, Jonathan is supposed to be the heir apparent. But there's also this theory as well that Saul kind of knows about the friendship between the two of Jonathan and David. My guess, it's probably more so the latter than the former. I think Saul knows that Jonathan and David are friends. Now, he may not know that they are best friends, which they are, but he knows that there is a friendship there. And so I think it makes sense why he asks Jonathan. Verse 28, Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem, which would be his hometown. He said, let me go, for our clan holds a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason, he has not come to the king's table. Now, in the defense of, I guess Saul, maybe? This is a lie. This is not a trap, but Jonathan is trying to figure out if what David is saying is true, that Saul is wanting to kill his best friend. And Jonathan is having a hard time understanding that, and really finding the balance between being a son of the king, but at the same time being a friend to this guy that the king is supposedly trying to kill as well. It's a very delicate balance, and Jonathan is struggling with it, so he puts this plan together. So does he lie here? Yes, he does. But is trying to see, okay, what does my father really want to do with David? Verse 30. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Oh, goodness, Saul. So Saul's jealousy clearly has clearly morphed into anger and hatred, as we talked about last time. But now he is just so obsessed on David. It's the only thing that he can really think of. Why? Because he wants to be king, not just for the rest of his life, but he wants his lineage to be king. Because in this day and age, even though you had passed on as the king, if your lineage continues to be the king, then you yourself are seen as still being a kingly figure, even though you have already passed. And so there is a lot of power in this lineage, and in a kingly lineage. And Saul does not want to lose that. And not only this, but he goes so far to blame his wife, or blame the mother of Jonathan, for having Jonathan in the first place. I mean, it's just this extreme and just dangerous obsession that Saul gets at. And yes, it's not just David. It is jealousy, it's fear, it's anger, it's hatred. There's so many things, but he's just obsessing over these things to the point where he is openly saying, I want this guy dead and gone. And verse 31, it is true. It is true what he is saying. For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. That would be true if David takes the throne, which, of course, if verse chapter 16 of verse Samuel, we already see that he is anointed. And I think Jonathan is already sensing that David's going to be the king after Saul. I think he's already sensed that. But this is just putting a bow on that. Like, this is just really cementing that idea to Jonathan, that David is going to be king. But what happens next is just so sad. Verse 32. Then Jonathan answered Saul his father, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Great questions, Jonathan. Great questions. Yes, obviously he poses a threat politically, and he poses a threat to the lineage of Saul. But he has not done anything. He has not tried to kill Saul. He's not tried to kill Jonathan. He's not tried to usurp the throne in a nonviolent way either. Yes, he has been a big force in the military for Israel, but that's not. That is nothing wrong because Saul is the one who sent him up over the 1,000, if you recall. And so here, these are great questions, and Jonathan is just trying to pose them, saying, look, why are you so mad at him? Why does he have to die? Why should he die? He has done nothing wrong. And, well, Saul does not take kindly to this. And why? It's not just because he's jealous. It's not just because he's angry or he hates David. It's because he's obsessed over keeping his power, and he's obsessed over keeping David away from the throne. Verse 33. But Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him. And that him is Jonathan, his son, his very own son, the heir apparent. I mean, it's such a, no other king would do this. And what I mean by that is any other king outside of this realm. Obviously, there are some examples that did because they wanted power for themselves. But when it comes to their heir apparent and their son, no king would have thought about doing this because, again, that would stop the line of power, especially if it's his only son. Now, here, it's not that case, but Jonathan is heir apparent. The people like Jonathan as well, so Jonathan would have been a great choice to be king, and yet he tries to skewer him. He tries to kill his own son. Now, of course, you could say that he didn't actually do it, which is true, but he tried, and that is just egregious. I mean, it's awful to think about. It really is. So Jonathan knew, picking up in 33, so Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. I mean, yeah, I bet he was determined. I bet he did know that at that point, that his father was determined to put David to death for sure. And then Jonathan, verse 34, and Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month. For he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. I mean, it's just this really sad moment where, because of the lack of parenting that you see with Saul, his giving in to his own anger and his own hatred towards David, and then just giving in to his obsession over power and over an obsession of making sure that David doesn't get to the throne either. It has really just wrecked this family apart. And it's really sad to see how dangerous obsession can be. And that is kind of what I wanted to take a look at today, specifically with First Samuel chapter 20. So, with that being said, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. We will continue on looking at the life of King Saul, and where we are going next continues just this downward spiral. And we will take a look at that next week. But once again, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me. I will see you next week. Thanks.